Nobody heard it, nobody saw it. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Read the Right Thing Book Reviews. Hope you're doing well. Full disclosure, I did not read this book, I listened to the audiobook. So I think technically this is my first audiobook review. I'll be reviewing the audiobook of Unrequited Infatuations by Stevie Van Zandt. Great title. That title tells you so much about the author and his life in only 2 words. I recently drove to Phoenix for a family gathering, and I stopped in southern Utah, Las Vegas, and Indio, California before heading over to Phoenix. I spent about 20 hours in the car there and back. Just me, the wheel, and the road. I needed some entertainment. Now, usually I choose music or podcasts, but I craved something different for this drive. I decided to get an audiobook, and I have a stack of books that I still need to read. But this one has been on my list for a while. Since it came out, I've been wanting to read it. So I thought, let's give the audiobook a try. I've never actually listened to a full book. I much prefer to read the physical copies. With audiobooks, I learned early on that I tend to zone out and miss things, especially if I'm listening to fiction. I hope that listening to a nonfiction memoir would keep me from zoning out, and I think it did. Stevie Van Zandt is a musician, actor, writer, political activist, and doctor. No, not that kind, doctor of the arts. He's famously from New Jersey. Now, it's no secret that I love Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. I love music history. I love almost all genres of music. I've already reviewed a few rock and roll memoirs and biographies, musicians like Springsteen, Brandi Carlile, Tom Petty, and Dave Grohl. Now, on the surface level, Stevie Van Zandt is most well known for 2 things: his role in the E Street Band and acting as Silvio Dante in The Sopranos. He plays the underboss in both roles. The second-hand man, the best friend. It's a role he's good at and enjoys. And seriously, just think of that. Guitarist, backup singer, producer for the E Street Band, and also actor in the greatest TV show ever. Seriously, this guy has carved out one of the strangest, most impressive careers in entertainment. And that's just the first 2 things. However, he's done a hell of a lot more than just those 2 things. His work cuts through entertainment, music, and political lines. His work outside the E Street Band and The Sopranos isn't as well known or praised nearly enough. Here's a list of things he's done outside of The Sopranos and the E Street Band. He co-founded Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. He wrote, produced, and played in the band. He was a main player in introducing the Jersey Shore rock sound to the world. He produced 2 albums for Gary U.S. Bonds. He produced and hosted his radio program Underground Garage since 2002. He directs 2 channels for Sirius XM. He started a label called Wicked Cool Records, producing many bands from Europe. He launched the Rock and Roll Forever Foundation and the Teach Rock programs. These programs help bring music history and the arts to students. He gathered a group of musicians to fight apartheid and produced the album Sun City. He acted in, wrote, and directed episodes for Lilyhammer, the first globally streamed TV show for Netflix. And he produced music for Darlene Love, playing a critical role in revamping her career and reintroducing her to the world. Busy guy. He's an excellent example of productivity, and he still finds time to walk his dog. He writes his story from the beginning. He starts out as a religious child and transforms into a rock and roll outcast. He started out in small town New Jersey and made it to the biggest stages in the world. He's an example of to just keep working no matter what happens. Through winning or losing, you just keep moving forward. You keep creating. He also has multiple personalities, or probably a better word is identities. Early on in the E Street Band, he was the fun-loving party guy known as Miami Steve. But when he left the E Street Band, he was in search of a new identity and a new purpose. He found it in political activism. He became the political guy and still is. Only back then, it was not cool to be the political guy. It was not popular to be political in the entertainment industry. So he was very ahead of his time. Because he focused on other projects, his personal projects suffered. His solo albums have yet to find their audience, And he says each solo tour seems to draw less people, even though he feels like the band and the music improves. He often says in his book, after talking about something he worked on, that nobody heard it, nobody saw it. I think at some point his music will be more appreciated, and I hope that happens when he is still alive to see it. I've seen his band perform twice, once in New York and once in Utah. Not the E Street Band, his solo band. He puts on a great show. His band sounds great, but sadly, he doesn't get nearly the draw that the E Street Band gets. It's funny how that works. I'm glad his shows are at smaller, more intimate venues because I feel like the shows are special. But I can understand how, as a musician, he really wants bigger crowds. And I used to have Sirius XM, and I love the channels like Outlaw Country and Little Steven's Underground Garage. I still follow him on Twitter to see what bands he's talking about, even though sometimes he gets grouchy on there when he tweets about politics. Not only is his life fascinating to learn about, but his knowledge on music history and the entertainment business is also interesting. He's been there for it all as a spectator and a player. He witnessed the evolution of rock from Elvis and the Beatles invasion to 90s grunge to today. He talks about the business side and the artistic side of recording music, and he spells out rather simply his thoughts on what makes a great band or a great record. One of my favorite tangents he went on was what makes a great cover song. Van Zandt still very much carries the torch of rock and roll. Many people consider him to be the most knowledgeable about music. Most readers will probably want more stories of Stevie and his friend Bruce in this book. They were friends growing up in New Jersey and eventually joined forces. They made great music together, and they were entering the pinnacle of rock and roll when Stevie just decided to leave the band. He felt the need to do other things. What was supposed to be the peak of his career, bringing all the fame and money that he desired, was not to be. He quit the E Street Band right before they recorded Born in the USA. Luckily for us, years later, they found their way back together, and they're even on tour right now. If you want drama and lots of Bruce, you will probably be disappointed, but he does talk about their work, their friendship, and even their disagreements. The book is read in his strong Jersey accent. Sometimes it feels like Silvio Dante is reading it to you. His bulldog-like delivery adds to the no bullshit tone of the book. He holds no punches. He's a fiery, opinionated guy, and he's quick to remind people of times when he was right, but also quick to acknowledge when he was probably wrong. Did I have any dislikes of this book? Some of my dislikes of this book were that he's very liberal. If you follow him on Twitter, you probably know that. Seems like he's always in arguments with MAGA conservatives, and everyone who disagrees with him is a moron. I was a little trepidatious to read this book because he is so political on Twitter, but it's toned back enough that I enjoyed the listen. I still rolled my eyes a few times when he got political. I don't want to make light of any COVID deaths, but there was a line where he said a friend was murdered by a science-denying ex-president. Now, unless Donald Trump, actually showed up with a blanket of COVID and suffocated the guy with it, I think that's a bit much to say. It came across as a bit melodramatic. If he watches this, he would probably tell me to go fuck myself, which is why I like him. I don't always agree with his beliefs, but I like hearing him speak his mind. I also wish he went a little more in depth about certain events. Not just with Springsteen, but with the music, the tours, and even The Sopranos. He mentions in the book that he really only remembers 10% of his life. And another times he even jokes that, who knows, we're all just making this shit up anyway. He encourages everyone to keep a diary because he's forgotten so much. I'm sure there are still some untold stories from touring and acting in The Sopranos. It's so crammed with events and big names that I wonder if he could have told less stories and gone deeper into the more important ones. A review from the Washington Independent Book Review said, in essence, Unrequited Infatuations is a book of anecdotes, observations, and opinions. That is both its strength and its weakness. I have to agree with that assessment. He'll lose his train of thought while telling one story to offer his opinions on just about anything. Sometimes they are humorous and sometimes they are smart. Other times I was wishing he would just get back to the point. But overall, I really enjoyed listening to this book. I think it is a welcome bonus piece to a life dedicated to music and art and politics. It neither helps nor really hurts his career. If you are a fan of Stevie Van Zandt, then I think after you read the book, you will like him even more. And if you don't like Stevie Van Zandt, after reading the book, you will probably dislike him more. If you like rock and roll and you like the Jersey Shore sound, then it's a great listen or read. It was the right thing for me because I love music, I love The Sopranos, and I love most things New Jersey. If you enjoy those things, you will like this book too. Bob Dylan said, "This is indeed a cautionary tale filled with outrageous humor, worldly wisdom, and an uncanny sense of daring. No doubt about it, Stevie proves it time and time again. He's the man to know." So that was my review of Unrequited Infatuations by Stevie Van Zandt. If you've read this book or listened to this book, let me know what you thought about it in the comments. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, read the right thing.